listening to The Leonard Lopate Show on AM 820 and 93.9 WNYC.
The process of looking for a job can be fraught with confusion, whether you're someone coming right out of school with little work experience, or even if you've been working for years but are starting the job hunt over again. To help us navigate the world of job hunting, I'm very pleased to welcome back to our show Human Resources Executive Victoria Humphrey, the author of Clueless Emperors: How to Overcome Problem People and Not Be One Yourself. And we invite you, our listeners, to join in the conversation. You can give us a call at 212-433-9692. Write to us on our show page at WNYC.org or on Facebook or Twitter, where our handle is at Leonard Lopate. Victoria, welcome back.
Thank you.
You've worked in different size businesses for years. Where are you these days?
Right now, I am enjoying my using my book as leverage and doing public speaking and consulting.
Do you help companies fill jobs?
I actually helped a personal friend recently fill a position, and so I have some recent experience on what people do with resumes and interviewing.
Many people want to start the new year with a clean slate. Is January a good time to look for a job?
I don't think it matters when, month-wise, when you're looking for a job.
There are no traditional hiring seasons?
Certainly at the end of the year when you're looking for college graduates. But outside of that, I would say no, companies hire when they need people.
What are some of the biggest problems you see in the resumes and cover letters of job applicants who are fresh out of college?
I would say low quality. Any little sloppy mistake on a resume is going to cost. So there is no substitution for ensuring those basics. I
always felt guilty when I was hiring people in a previous job if they misspelled the word liaison, and everybody seemed to use that word, but they left out one of the I's. I just automatically would put that on the no pile. They may have been great people, and I feel guilty now, but I thought if you're going to apply for a job, you should spell correctly.
No doubt about it, and it's a buyer's market. So the people out there who are trying to sell their skills just simply have too much competition, and they, like I said, there's no substitution for quality.
Does a spelling mistake mean an automatic pass, or was I just being too hard?
No, I think in many cases it's an automatic pass. When you've got 100 people that qualify for a job, why would you go after someone who can't spell all the words in their resume correctly?
And then some of the sloppy mistakes, are you talking about formatting or just not phrasing a thing well?
Well, I think a little more sophisticated level, and that is people who list what they've done and say my responsibilities, so forth, are not capitalizing on what they've actually accomplished. Very few resumes that I have seen over the years will actually list what people have accomplished. Stay away from listing. Stay away from my responsibilities, : ... Don't list.
Because it doesn't say that you did the job well. It just says that you had that job.
We all know people who have had responsibilities and what they actually accomplished did not correlate.
Do you think this has always been the case? Are we seeing some special problems with this current generation?
I would say it's always been the case.
What's the best way to give feedback when you see these poor behaviors that may be costing people a job?
Very few hiring companies are going to give that kind of feedback. The best thing to do is when you are the job seeker, go out and get smart people and accomplished people and have them help you get feedback from them.
It was pointed out during the worst of the unemployment period following the crash of 2008 that people weren't hiring people who've been out of work for a while. It seemed to me that those were the ones who needed the jobs the most, but they were much more likely to hire people who were coming from another job.
It is true that there is a bias toward hiring people who have jobs, and it is. I'm not saying it's an intelligent bias, but there is a bias. And so if you are not currently working or have been out of the marketplace for a period, it's very important to be able to tell your story in a compelling way about why that is so.
Getting back to the whole matter of lists, doesn't resume advice usually suggest using bullet points?
Bullet points are fine. I'm just saying state accomplishments instead of listing what you've done.
So it was when I was doing such and such, I brought $8 million to the firm, that kind of thing.
Yes. In other words, instead of saying my responsibilities included sales of widgets, it would be I was the number one widget salesperson in my office.
Why do you use a pyramid to help explain the process of job hunting? Can you explain the pyramid?
I think visualizing a pyramid is helpful if we understand that the base of if that pyramid is full of job seekers and available jobs. The base of the pyramid has more job seekers and more jobs, lower pay, less strict job requirements. As we move up that pyramid, our competition gets smaller, but so do the number of jobs. And so what each person should strategically be thinking about is, how do I get myself up that pyramid?
But the ones at the bottom of the pyramid are people who haven't had much education.
Right.
In the past, there were always jobs for them. We've been hearing in recent years that it's very hard for those people to get jobs now.
Yeah, it's all the supply and demand, and of course, most people are not satisfied to stay at the bottom of the pyramid either. So it's a good thing to get prepared.
Not everyone can go to college. Either because of the money or because they just don't have those kinds of skills, but they might be a perfectly fine worker in another kind of area.
Yeah, I certainly never want to emphasize it's critical to get a college education. I think it's critical to understand what you're interested in, what technical skills you want to develop, and get very, very good at whatever it is you love to do.
My guest is Victoria Humphrey. Her book, Clueless Empress, How to Overcome Problem People and Not Be One Yourself. We're talking about job seeking. The investor Peter Thiel started a fellowship that encouraged students to leave college and pursue independent projects. What do you think about that? A lot of people were horrified.
I think it's a dangerous game to either encourage people to go or discourage people from going. I think each person is unique, and we've got to follow where our interests are and where our skills are, because if we don't, we're going to be faking it, and our performance will show it.
If somebody is hiring, are they more likely to give extra credit to somebody who has a college degree but less work experience than somebody who's had a lot of work experience but never even went to college?
Depends on the job. As an example, I've been in human resources most of my career. I started in sales and then moved into the human resources arena. And in my field, I required degrees. It was very important for those particular jobs to have an education.
There are certain fields where demand outstrips supply, like computer programming. Should people anxious for a job learn to code, for instance, even if that's not a field they're particularly interested in?
Well, I've never thought of developing skills or spending time on something that I'm not interested in. I suppose, again, that's if you're highly disciplined, that might be an idea to pursue.
Now, why are college degrees so important? There has been a lot of argument about what colleges are doing these days, and a college degree today probably means that it was more like a job training experience than it would have been in the past, when it was thought that you just should get a wonderful general education.
From my perspective, it's always indicated the ability to follow through. Getting through a university education or college education is not easy, and a lot of people drop out. So whenever I see someone has actually had that accomplishment, I say to myself, well, they had a plan and they followed through, and that's an indication of what they might do on the job.
Some of our listeners have been writing in, by the way. Our number here is 212-433-9692. You can write to us on our show page at wnyc.org or on Facebook or Twitter, where our handle is at Leonard Lopate. A listener from New Jersey left a comment saying, I have been sending resumes out for months and get no response, even for jobs I'm perfectly qualified for. I've updated my resume with a professional resume writer. I'm 63 and feel that's a factor. Any tips?
Number one, always have a cover letter with your resume no matter where it's going. Identify the specific job you're looking for. And I think third, and very important, always say what you can deliver, not what you want.
But 63 is a hindrance, isn't it?
How would, unless this person is putting their either college degree date or any other info, no one would know.
Oh, you don't have to list your age?
Absolutely not.
David in Manhattan left a question on our show page. What advice do you have for older employees with no break-in employment applying for jobs requiring years of experience, yet employers want to pay them less than the prior compensation or treat them as if they are just out of college and want to be in the loop over every little detail? That was a complicated question.
Yes, it was. I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but what I'm hearing is I'm qualified for more money and I'm being offered less. And again, it's a supply and demand world. The most simplistic example I can think of is when we go to the grocery store, when avocados are not plentiful in California, which I think is going on right now, avocados cost more. So you've got to understand where you are fitting into that pyramid and what your value is. And never, I say don't underestimate yourself, but don't overestimate either.
But that's the reason that people lose their jobs as well when they get older. They can be replaced by somebody younger who is willing to take less money. And then you're out there on the job market. You have a certain lifestyle that you've developed because you've been earning a certain amount of money, and now you either take an incredible cut in pay or you try to last until unemployment runs out and then hopefully Social Security kicks in.
Another reason to think through the pyramid, prepare for the future. Here's a personal example. I decided I was going to take what I'd learned in my life and write a book. That shows an example of following through on something. So and if you have an entrepreneurial spirit or if you have some ideas for a business, there are all kinds of resources to help people get out on their own, and then they're never in a situation where they can be taken advantage of.
I've seen a lot of people who are in that situation who've become consultants. I knew that meant that the job search hadn't worked out well, but they knew an awful lot.
That isn't always the case. There are a lot of consultants that would be snapped up in a hurry if they were available.
Anna from Westchester, hi, you're on the air.
Hi. I'm a registered nurse, and I recently wanted to apply for a position through a online website for a hospital, and I met all the qualifications, and I'm concerned because the amount of personal information that they requested just for me to be able to apply was just extreme. Beyond the resume, a cover letter, my credentials, like my license number and contact information, they wanted me to consult to a credit check, so provide my Social Security number, my salary history. I had to consent to immunizations prior to anybody ever even responding to my application saying we're interested in you as a candidate. There wasn't any other way to apply for this job as opposed, other than the website itself. If you try to call the HR department directly, there's an auto message saying submit your information on the website. And then sometimes, even if you do consent and you provide all this information, half the time places don't even respond to you. And so then I'm concerned that they have this huge pile of personal information on you. It just goes into like La La Neverland. You never hear from them.
It's very frustrating, and I know exactly what you're talking about because I've done some job searches myself, and I would literally make some decisions when people were asking for too much of my time in the application process. I would just say, next. I'm not going to spend this much time.
Ultimately, that is what I did. But it's disappointing because I've seen, job postings, specific job postings that I would be a great candidate for, and there's no way for me to even speak to a live person to say, you know what, I'm a great candidate, but I have some concerns about this. And, why don't you look at my stuff? I understand all that information being, that the job is contingent on my submitting that information in the end. But to do that before I've even talked to a live person seems...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've often wondered if some of these companies don't sit around a conference table and say, let only the hardy apply. So we'll just make this really tough and see who follows through.
I have a feeling it's all about weeding people out. They just don't want to see an awful lot. They don't want to do a lot of interviews. So if they get as much information in advance, then they can say, okay, there are only 2 or 3 people who actually fit the profile.
I think that's true.
My guest is Victoria Humphrey. her book, Clueless Empress, How to Overcome Problem People and Not Be One Yourself. Our number here is 212-433-9692. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can write to us on our show page at wnyc.org or on Facebook or Twitter, where our handle is at Leonard Lopate. We're back with Victoria Humphrey. We're talking about looking for a job. Well, the unemployment figures are better than they have been, but they're still quite high. We're taking your calls at 212-433-9692. You can write to us on our show page at wnyc.org or on Facebook or Twitter, where our handle is at Leonard Lopate. Before we get to some more of the calls, what are some of the basic mistakes that people make in the way they present themselves?
I think it's very common for people to have on their resume my job objective. I personally think that that is not a good thing to put on a resume, because what you want is way less important than what you can deliver to the company, and so few people understand that dynamic, that if you can say in your cover letter why you are applying for this particular job and what you can deliver to that company, it makes a very big difference.
And when you say my job objective, you either saying something that perhaps might sound too ambitious. My job objective is to become emperor of the universe. Or you might be showing a very limited sense of yourself.
I just think very subtly it communicates me, instead of you.
And they want to hear about themselves.
They do.
For example, people told me for years that if you want a job at the New York Times, you had to say, it's been my dream all my life to work for the New York Times, whether that was true or not.
Oh, and that's a very good example of what I'm talking about, because frankly, the New York Times doesn't care what your dream is. They want somebody who can help them sell newspapers.
Emily from Brooklyn, hi, you're on the air.
Hi there. I am in an industry, education, which is not something for which headhunters are normally hired to fill positions. And I'm curious about the role of social media, not so much in what are the rules for updating your LinkedIn profile or getting on About Me, but more along the lines of developing your personal brand through blogging or tweeting. What's the risk versus reward, particularly in an industry that's polarizing like education is these days?
I'm not sure I understand your question there.
I'm just wondering, how does personal branding play into the job hunt? They'll Google you for sure. How do you make sure that you're presenting a good foot forward and doing more to present yourself rather than just, your list of jobs? And
let me add to that. A number of people have asked, is LinkedIn worthwhile if you're looking for jobs?
I think LinkedIn is worthwhile because something is always better than nothing. I say use connections, join groups that are linked to, pardon the use of that word, linked to what you're interested in doing. I think personal branding can be very helpful. Certainly, I suppose it should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway, make sure there's nothing on the internet that will make you look goofy or stupid. I even say if you have an email address that is goofy, get another one to make it more professional. I know that there are people who will look at some email address and say, what is this person thinking?
On the other hand, we don't always have control. Somebody stuck a picture of me on a Wikipedia entry that I never would have chosen. It is not the way I look. But it was taken at a bad moment in my life.
Yeah, if
and I'm stuck with it. I guess I could get rid of it, but...
Just be sure that there's nothing that you personally are doing that would ever hurt you. And I think that personal branding, if it's done professionally, could be helpful.
So none of those nude pictures.
Right. Get rid of those nude pictures.
Emily, thank you so much for calling us.
Thanks.
Alex from New Jersey, hi, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi. I just have a question. I'm a college senior. I'm about to graduate, and I kind of went for that rich general education. I majored in a liberal arts curriculum, and now what I'm finding is I don't have the internships or the professional experience or the vocational training, really, to even kind of set myself off in a certain direction in the job field. I'm not even sure where to be looking at this point. So I just wonder what advice you have to people with, a good, solid educational background, but nothing really in professional experience per se.
I think getting a degree in liberal arts is an absolutely fine thing to do. I know several people who rose to CEO positions with one in particular comes to mind with a major in art history. What you need to do is frame why you decided to get that type of education. Get clear about the kind of things you like to do. There are internships. Some of them don't pay, and I know people don't want to hear about this, but there are internships out there where you can gain experience, and if it's the best way for you to get that experience and take a non-paying internship, then I think that's what you need to do. If you want to tie a little technical education to that liberal arts education, that's positive as well.
I can point out that pretty much all of my staff started as interns because we got to know them. We knew what they were capable of doing. And it would have taken somebody really spectacular with the best resume I've ever seen to beat them out.
Right.
But of course, we looked at every candidate we could when there were job openings. But internships really are a way of showing what you can do.
They sure are.
Thank you for calling us, Alex.
All right,
Good
thank
luck. Gavin, hi, you're on the air.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to add a little bit about the benefits of using LinkedIn that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. And I had a personal success story of turning around a job rejection into a job offer using LinkedIn. And I don't work for LinkedIn. Just want to give that disclaimer there.
Okay, well, if you did, I would ask you to tell them to stop sending me all of those notices. I have to delete them all. They have no meaning to me. I'm not looking for a job.
Right. So anyway, I was doing a pretty targeted job search, and I feel, I've done this a few times where, I had my cover letter ready that was tailored to this job. I had my resume done, looked over by a few different people. I know I was well qualified for this job, and I sent in my application, and, about a week later I got that automated denial email from HR saying, thank you, we were very impressed by you, but we decided to move forward with somebody else. And in the meantime, I had gone onto LinkedIn and looked up that company's profile, and what LinkedIn does for you is it shows you who you know at that company.
Perfect.
And then I looked and said, I think people avoid LinkedIn because they think it's just another social media fad. And, there's a lot of noise on LinkedIn for sure, Leonard, as you pointed out before. But once you look at who you're connected to at the company you're trying to get in touch with, then you can take it offline and bring it back to the human level. So what
Great
I did is
story.
I looked at I knew some vice president at this company that I was applying for, and she knew a friend of mine from college. So I just sent a message to my friend saying, hey, how's it going? You can call them, text them, meet up, whatever you want to do. I called them up and said, hey, do you know this person? You know them well. Would you be willing to drop them a note on my behalf, this position I'm applying for? And she was like, oh, yeah, I know her from the stance group I was in. And I said, oh, okay, great. And then I had gotten that denial email, and I said, just a heads up, I did just get denied. I said, want to be completely transparent here. And she said, oh, okay, well, I passed it along to her anyway. And then another week later, she said, oh, my friend put your application on the hiring manager's desk, bypassing the HR wall.
Yes, actually, they probably didn't bypass the HR wall. What happens is that when you know someone, or when someone in the company contacts anyone in HR, HR will almost automatically contact that person because of the personal connection. So you did a very smart thing in checking that out.
A listener wonders, what happens if you've been fired from a job? How do you explain that at an interview? Or if you've worked for short periods of a year in a number of different places, how do you deal with that in an interview?
I think it's important to tell the truth. One of my guidelines is never, ever, ever misrepresent anything, either in an interview or a resume, because it will catch up with you. I had a fellow one time I was ready to offer a job to who had been convicted of a DUI when he was a teenager, and he lied about it on his resume. And we would have hired him if he had told the truth, and he didn't get the job because of it.
Pam from Piermont. Hi, you're on the air. Hello, Pam. Okay. Well,